Hello, this is Mr. Davis, and these are the style pile notes to add style and flair to your writing. First thing you need to do is ask for a copy if you're in my class, or if you're not, print a copy of the style pile notes. Then you're going to watch this lesson, filling in your notes as you go, and you only need the parts that are in red. If you want to take down other information that's not in red, you're more than welcome to do so. Today's style pile lesson is going to focus on semicolons. Alright, your first box says, what is it? Today we're learning about semicolons, which is this guy right here. Semicolons are a great way to add just a little bit of style to your writing, and they're not that hard to use. Rule number 1, so this is your second box, you must have two complete ideas that could stand on their own before you can join them with a semicolon. Second rule, rule number 2, is they must be related to each other. Here's an example for us to look at. Freedom is not free. That is a complete idea that could stand on its own. If somebody stood up and said freedom is not free and stopped talking, that's one complete idea that could stand on its own. Second part says, people throughout our nation's history have sacrificed a lot to preserve our freedom. This second part right here is also a complete idea that could stand on its own. Therefore, we followed rule number 1. Now rule number 2, they must be related. The first one is talking about freedom not being free. The second one is talking about how people have sacrificed for our freedom. They're related, therefore we can join them with this semicolon right here. Okay, for this slide, you can go ahead and pause it for a moment and just kind of think to yourself, what is wrong with this sentence? Alright, if you took a second to pause, hopefully you saw that this did not follow the two rules that we just learned. The first rule we learned is they have to be two complete ideas that could stand on their own. So let's take a look. I enjoy walking in the park. That's a complete idea that could stand on its own. Tacos taste good. That's a complete idea that could stand on its own. So it follows rule number 1. The problem is rule number 2. They have to be related. I enjoy walking in the park. Tacos taste good. Those two things aren't really related. So you cannot join them with a semicolon. Okay, I want you to look at this slide now. You can go ahead and pause the video one more time and think to yourself, does this fix the problem that we saw a moment ago? Hopefully you took a moment to pause and kind of reflected to yourself. You should have checked the two rules. Rule number 1, the two ideas have to be complete ideas that could stand on their own. Let's check that. I enjoy walking in the park. That's a complete idea that could stand on its own. The trees are beautiful at the park this time of year. That's a complete idea that could stand on its own, so it follows rule number 1. Rule number 2 is they have to be related. This first idea is talking about walking in the park. The second idea is talking about the trees being beautiful at the park this time of year. They're both complete ideas that could stand on their own. They're related. Therefore, we can join them with a semicolon, just like we have right here. Alright, take a moment, pause the video. I want you to look at this sentence and think to yourself, what is wrong with this sentence here? Alright, hopefully you took a second to pause. Let's take a look at this. Remember rule number 1, they have to be two complete ideas that could stand on their own. To be able to win the game, whoa, this is not a complete idea that could stand on its own. If somebody walked into a room and said, to be able to win the game, and stopped talking, everyone would wonder, well, what do we have to do to be able to win the game? So, it broke the first rule, so we cannot join these two ideas with a semicolon. Alright, take a moment, you can pause the video and kind of think to yourself, does this fix the problem? Alright, we had to practice harder than ever before to win the game. That is a complete idea that could stand on its own. Cool, so let's check the second part. We ended up winning 43-0. Wow, that's quite a win. So it follows rule number 1. Rule number 2, they have to be related. Both of them are talking about winning the game. So bam, we can join this with a semicolon, and it does fix the problem that we saw on the previous slide. Alright, now we're moving on to that third box, the use it box. I want you to describe how you woke up and got ready this morning using a semicolon to do so. I want you to write your answer in the music box, take a moment to pause the video, put down your answer, and then we'll move on to the next slide. Here's just one example of what this could look like. I woke up and cooked breakfast, semicolon, because that's a complete idea that could stand on its own right there. Second part, it is my mom's birthday today, and I wanted to surprise her with a special meal. That's a complete idea that could stand on its own. They're related, therefore, I can join them with a semicolon. Check your own example to make sure it follows the two rules. If you're not sure, call your teacher over and have them check it to make sure you've used the semicolon appropriately. Here are some more examples of ways you can use a semicolon. That first example is kind of like a thesis statement for an essay. Second example is a short example of how to use a semicolon. The third one's got a little bit of history in it, talking about Abraham Lincoln. If you want to review these in details, please take a moment, pause the video, take a look at them. All right, your job now is to add semicolons to your writing, to add style and flair to your writing. However, don't overdo it. Nobody likes too much of a good thing. What I'm saying is every single sentence or two ideas that you join together, you don't always want to put a semicolon because that's going to get repetitive, and although you're trying to add style to your writing, you might overdo it if you use a semicolon in every single sentence of your essay or of your writing. Thank you for using these style pile notes, and hopefully you'll find it easy to add semicolons to your writing and look like a more advanced writer.